Let's take a moment to arrive together. Not by doing anything, just by noticing your breath, your body, the space you're in. No need to change it. No need to deepen it. Just notice that you're here. You're already aware. Aware of this moment. Aware of this space. Aware of yourself. Here. And that awareness, that quiet presence, is where everything begins. And that's enough. Welcome back to the garden. As we begin, notice this gently. There is a steadiness here, not something outside of you, but something you are already a part of. A presence that does not rush you, does not pressure you, does not ask you to become anything other than what you are. Here, we don't force change. We allow alignment. Everything shared here is an invitation into awareness. Not something to collect, but something to live. So, as you listen, notice what feels true for you from within. In our last episode, we spoke about healing, returning to the heart, learning how to stay present with what arises, learning how to listen and how to release. But what comes after healing is where something begins to stabilize. Something begins to take form. Because once something has been seen and felt and understood, the question becomes, how do we live this? And that moment is what we call integration. We've been walking through a simple truth. Seek the truth and you will find it. And when you find it, you will be disturbed. And now the next movement, and when you are disturbed, you will be amazed. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because something becomes clear. Integration is not a final step. It's not something you arrive at once and stay there forever. It's a way of living. It's what happens when what you've seen and what you felt begins to shape how you move. It's the moment where you stop just understanding the truth and begin to live it, where your choices begin to shift, not from pressure, but from alignment. The old patterns may still appear, but they no longer lead. The thoughts may still come, but they no longer define you. The emotions may still rise, but they no longer control your direction. Because something deeper has formed. Trust, clarity, presence. Integration is where the soul and spirit are no longer experienced as separate, not something you reach toward, but something you recognize within. And from that place, life begins to reorganize. You begin to make decisions differently, respond instead of react, choose what aligns instead of what is familiar. There's a moment that reflects this kind of alignment in a very real way. A moment in the life of Jesus that shows what integration actually looks like when it's not easy. It's the prayer at Gethsemane. In that moment, there is awareness, there is feeling, there is even resistance. Let this cup pass from me. That's honest, that's human, that's real. But then there's alignment, not my will, but yours. And this is the part that matters, because nothing external changed in that moment. The situation didn't disappear, the discomfort didn't vanish, but the response shifted. The response shifted from resistance to alignment. And that's what integration looks like. It's not the absence of feeling, it's the ability to feel fully and still choose what is true. It's the moment where what you know and what you choose become the same. And that doesn't happen instantly. But when it does, there is a steadiness that follows. Not because everything is easy, but because you are no longer divided within yourself. Integration is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming consistent. Consistent in how you listen, consistent in how you respond, consistent in how you return to yourself. There's something important I've come to understand about integration. It's not a stage you arrive at once and then move on from. It's a cycle. Awakening, healing, integration, and then again, awakening, healing, integration. But each time the cycle repeats, something changes. The awareness becomes clearer, the healing becomes more honest, and the integration begins to happen more quickly. What once felt like extreme swings, from clarity to confusion, from peace to overwhelm, begins to soften. The distance between the extremes starts to close until eventually what once felt like sharp ups and downs begins to feel more like a steady line. Not because life stops moving, but because you are no longer moving so far away from yourself. And I saw this very clearly in my own life, especially in how I related to God. There was a time in my healing journey where I began to notice something uncomfortable. The things I had always done, going to church, reading the Bible, worshiping, started to feel different. What once felt meaningful began to feel like effort, like I was trying to earn something, trying to gain approval, trying to be enough. And that realization didn't come all at once. It began as a subtle discomfort, something I couldn't quite explain, but couldn't ignore. So I did something that felt unfamiliar at the time. I stopped, not from a place of rejection, but from a place of honesty. I stopped doing anything that felt like striving. At first, I replaced it with structure. 90 days of prayer, 90 days of worship, 90 days of meditation, still seeking, but in a way that felt more aligned. And over time, something began to shift. The more I allowed myself to do what felt true, the less it felt like I was trying to earn something from outside of me. Eventually, even those structures fell away. And I wasn't following a program anymore. I was simply living. And then came another moment of integration, a deeper one. I remember one day starting what had once been my normal worship routine, and something in me resisted, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet discomfort. And instead of pushing past it, like I might have done before, I listened. And that discomfort began to reveal something, a new understanding that maybe the example of Jesus was never meant to create obligation, but to show us what wholeness looks like when it's lived. That his life wasn't asking to be performed back to him, but embodied. And that shifted everything. Because I stopped relating to him as something outside of me to please. And I began to see his life as something to understand and live. And that was integration. Not rejecting what I had known, but seeing it more clearly. And then the cycle continued. Over time, something else began to surface. Another awareness. This time, it wasn't about what I was doing. It was about where I was. I began to notice a sense of stagnation, a lack of openness, a tendency to judge what wasn't understood instead of being curious about it. And again, it didn't come as a loud realization. It came as a feeling, something that no longer felt aligned. And this time, integration asked something different of me. It asked me to move, to step away, and that wasn't easy, but it was clear. And when I did, it felt like space opened, like something released. Not because I had rejected anything, but because I have followed what was true for me. And now I can see it all differently. I don't see those stages as mistakes or as something I had to leave behind. I see them as a part of the process, each one revealing something, each one refining something, and each one bringing me into deeper alignment. And that's what integration is. Not arriving at a final answer, but continuing to live what becomes clear. And allowing that clarity to evolve. Because each time you listen, each time you respond, each time you choose alignment, the cycle continues. But it becomes gentler, more steady, more whole, and eventually you are no longer trying to find your way back to yourself. You are living from yourself. And what I've come to realize is that integration doesn't just move you forward. Sometimes it brings you back full circle. But when you return, you're not the same. Even now, I find myself drawn back to the things I once stepped away from. Songs I used to sing, moments of worship I once knew. But the experience is different now. Because before, those songs felt like I was reaching outward, singing to something outside of me, praising something I believed was separate from me. But now, when I hear those same songs, something has shifted. I'm not reaching anymore. I'm recognizing. And instead of singing to Jesus, I find myself singing from a place within me, or even about myself, not in ego, but in remembrance. And that might sound unfamiliar at first, but what it really is integration. Because what once felt separate is no longer experienced that way. And what once felt like devotion outward has become embodiment inward. It's the same expression, but a completely different awareness. And that's how you know the cycle is working. You don't just leave things behind, you return to them with clarity. You see them differently, you experience them differently, and you engage with them from wholeness. So what once felt like striving becomes expression. What once felt like seeking becomes knowing. And what once felt like separation is revealed as something that was never truly separate at all. And this is the beauty of integration. It doesn't take your life away from you. It gives it back to you with awareness. And this is where integration becomes visible, not just in what you understand, but in how you live. There's another moment that shows this clearly. In this moment, there's no teaching being explained, no lesson being spoken, just action. Jesus kneels and washes his disciples' feet. Something simple, ordinary, but in that culture, this was something done by servants. And yet, the one they called teacher chose to embody that role. Not to prove anything, not to perform, but because there was no separation anymore between what he taught and how he lived. And this is what integration does. It removes the distance between what you understand and how you show up, between what is spiritual and what is everyday life. Because eventually there is no difference. Truth is no longer something you think about. It becomes something you express in how you speak, in how you respond, in how you care, in how you choose, even the smallest moments. And that's how you know integration is happening. When nothing in your life feels separate from what you know to be true. This is where everything becomes real. Not in what you say you believe, but in how you live. Integration looks like holding a boundary even when it's uncomfortable, speaking truth without needing to defend it, choosing peace without needing everything around you to change. Worship begins to change here. It's no longer something you do. It becomes how you live. Worship becomes how you speak, how you move, how you choose. It's no longer reaching for something outside of you. It's living from what is already within you. Truth also shifts. It's no longer something you chase. It becomes something you recognize, not rigid, not forced, but lived. And this is important. You will still revisit healing. You will still have moments of awakening, but now you meet them differently, with more awareness, more steadiness, more trust. Integration is not about arriving somewhere new. It's about living from what has already been revealed. Because integration leads us somewhere deeper. Not just living truth, but becoming it. May what you've come to understand begin to take form in how you live. May your choices reflect your clarity. May your life become aligned with what you know to be true. And may you remember, you are not becoming something new. You are learning to live as who you already are.